Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Swapnali, and on behalf of Ramco and UBS Forums, I welcome you all for this exclusive virtual webinar on Power Your Business with Global Payroll Standardization. Thank you so much for sparing your time today and joining us for this session. Giving a brief idea, this is 1.5 hour webinar, which includes 2 presentations followed by a panel discussion and then Q&A. This is happening on Zoom platform, so your session would be recorded. I hope this is fine with all of you. Before we start, a few basic guidelines I would like to make you people aware of. You all will be automatically muted. In case you have any questions or queries, please use the hand raise option, or else you can put up your questions directly into the chat box or else the Q&A box. After every session, we will be open for questions and we'll be happy to pick up your questions from the Q&A box. Okay, with this, we'll move towards our webinar. Giving a brief introduction about the webinar, the past 18 months have been a game changer for the world of businesses. As the COVID-19 pandemic gripped the world and made public spaces unsafe, it became almost mandatory for organizations to find new ways of maintaining business continuity. Almost everywhere in the world, businesses were forced to work with limited staff and switch most of their employees to remote working model. Digital dexterity of employees became their number one goal. In the light of this digital transformation become the number one goal for HR departments also. Modern technologies have become a key tool for driving efficiencies for HR globally by supporting and shaping organizations' competitive strategies. With employees working from home, and the management of time and attendees has taken on a new dimension. New government schemes and compliance changes the face of COVID-19 mean that payroll has to keep itself up to date, and every change that happens in every country, as well as on state and local levels where employees are based. Thus, the standardization of multi-country payroll has become imperative and a topic worth discussing. Today at this session, we will discuss how you can accelerate and transform your payroll function to consolidate it effectively for your global operations. With this, we'll invite a keynote speaker for the day. That would be Mr. Sumit Sabrawal, who is the head of HR and Global Delivery Centers at Fujitsu. With this, over to you, Sumit sir, to take it forward from here.
Thank you very much. Could somebody just acknowledge, am I audible to you guys?
Yes, you are. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, Ramco UBS, it's a great opportunity that you guys have created for professionals like us to come together and share views. I think in a pre-COVID world, it is very limited interaction. I'll give a bit of introduction about myself, my role, and then kind of straight away jump into the topic. I'm a part of an organization called Fujitsu, which is well known around the world. It's a Japanese organization throughout the world. I manage the human resources for 8 countries, which are global delivery centers, starting from Costa Rica to Philippines, Russia, India, and a couple of other locations. So I think while I speak today, you will have a bit of context of me bringing the global insights and being in an audience which runs payroll. I think it is a very key function. But I'll take the opportunity today to talk a little bit about the global trends on human resources and how do we see things shaping up in the coming years. So a little bit about my role, as I said, I think I have the opportunity to work with a lot of HR professionals and various businesses across the world. And I think for us at Fujitsu, I think the key factor that we work upon, and I think most of you are kind of experiencing today, is the changing working environment, which is very fast, and we have been very adaptable. So at Fujitsu, I think there are 2 large themes that we are currently looking at. One is to build a culture of inclusiveness. And I think most of us have that agenda as human resources in various functions, because inclusiveness is just not about hiring people with LGBTQ or gender. It's also about creating an environment where people feel comfortable and feel wanted. And I think in this whole COVID situation, getting to even know about the sentiments of the people is a big challenge for us. So I think as an organization, our endeavor is to kind of build a culture of inclusivity. And also a culture of empathy. While I'm honored to come and speak to you about in a forum where all of you or most of you are expertise in systems and integrations and processes. I think somewhere or the other, uh, closer to the ground in terms of human relationships is still a key. And I think in this kind of a pandemic scenario, communication and engagement plays a very vital role. So while I was selecting the topic and thought of kind of putting few notes together, I thought it would be very relevant that you will have the later part of the day talking about systems. But just to give a bit of sense that how systems and how finances, because we're an audience which talks a little bit about payroll and back end, how does it matter? What are the trends, what we are typically seeing? There are a couple of themes that I'm going to very briefly talk to you about is the role of finance and HR. And some of you must be thinking that it's a bit strange that why an HR person is talking about finance today. In last 18 months, I have personally seen with my teams that we've been very close to the finance department while we run payroll, while we run various other expenses and other engagements that we have. Uh, what we have realized, besides the fact that we are doing great on our systems, we are integrating, we are doing virtual onboarding and a lot of things. I think financial wellness is something as an interesting topic which is coming up in the market, and a financial wellness from an employee perspective. In this whole COVID scenario, a lot of people have lost jobs. A lot of them have kind of got opportunities to find another job. I think what we have observed in last 15 to 18 months is that people have become um, more what would I call sensitive about financial wellness, and that's why the relationship of human resources and finance is being very close to each other. And I'm going to give you two or three examples where we see that while we all talk about HR is all about employee experience, how a financial experience matters to an individual. So recently I was talking to employees in Philippines, and I think you'll be surprised to know by the hour the payroll gets processed in that country impacts uh, the feeling levels, the motivation level, and the reputation of the company. So I think that's the impact of running a transaction, a payroll transaction matters, because in that country, people get paid every 15 days. And typically what they kind of believe in is having that money secured in their accounts, in a COVID scenario. Now, of course, the needs are very different. Some people would like to go and spend in the evening and have a good time. Some of them would kind of secure their future. So that's an impact of a financial wellness to an employee. And interestingly, I was talking to somebody in Portugal, where we have one of our global delivery centers. A lot of people come to Portugal just because of the fact that they want to spend a year, have a good time, work part time, and then kind of have a good life from across Europe. And for us, running a payroll transaction or wellness is very different. But interestingly, we've started seeing people saving money over there and not just living by hand to mouth. So I think these are two good examples that I can tell you about where the market is moving in terms of employee experience. They value money, and they also ensure that how is the experience by the organization. And I think no better than most of you on this call who run large systems at the back end play a very crucial role. So I'm very grateful to all of you. And I think the whole role of systems and human resources systems play a very critical role. While I've given you a bit of an optimal benefit strategy between finance and HR and how we partner together very closely, I think one of the things that I want you to all reflect around is how is the market responding. And I think these are forums where we get an opportunity to share thoughts. um, I'm very careful with words like great resignation and the turnover tsunami, and I do see smile on a lot of faces that you have. So yeah, that's reality. A lot of people talk about it, a lot of people don't talk about it, but that's true reality that today the market is very competitive. And I think beyond money, what matters is inclusivity, as I said, culture of valuing people, culture of empathy. So I think at Fujitsu, one of our key drivers of one of the reasons why we have a great reputation in the market as an employer of choice, or employer where people tenure for a long duration, is because of the fact that while we've got great systems processes, I think we put a lot of focus around on experiences. So while we are not kind of like rest of you would kind of move away from talking about reality, but I think there is also an opportunity for all of us to see that how through systems and technology can we bring people. Uh, when we talk to a lot of employees, they say you guys in HR are great at implementing various systems, and I don't want to name, you kind of run the whole systems in terms of scalability, but where is the connect in this whole COVID environment? Are we talking to people? We are kind of creating inbuilt APIs in Microsoft Teams where you can nudge people and ask them about performance management. How are you feeling in the day? What is the pulse? So people do come back and say, you've got great technology and great platform, but instead of a robot coming and nudging me and asking me what is my pulse meter on my mood today, if I probably would have got a call from my manager, or if I would have got a call from an HR, it would have been a very different experience once even in a month. So I think in my position, I think my request is that we also bring in the human aspect. And my ambition that a lot of people ask that, robots are learning from us. Can robot also learn from us to be slightly be more empathetical? And I'm sure in the next few years, we will also teach them how to be empathetical, whether artificially or unartificially. But I think those are also the trends what we are seeing, where turnover is a topic of interest for a lot of us. But I think there are some great organizations which are turning it around with systems and technology by making it sure that we are kind of building that angle of empathy. And when I talked about financial wellness, I think we also explored in last 18 months for us. Otherwise, it was very transactional, doing the right thing, running the right payroll, right time, zero defects was there. But today, what we really talk about the fact is that if we still have defects, can we just pick up the phone and tell people and talk to them and apologize about it? Because there's no harm in apologizing, because we all are humans and we do mistakes. So I think that is something that I would reinforce. Last important topic that I would just touch upon is, are we reevaluating the role of technology? I mean, in last 18 months, I think we all have experienced a very different way of working. I mean, today, most of you are HR professionals. I get amazed when now customer says we don't want to do 4 rounds of interview, we are fine with 1 round of interview. And we spend years kind of convincing customers, saying that 1 round of interview is good enough. But today, if you pick up any newspapers, everybody's saying that's the next in thing. So where are systems today to that? Our systems are designed to do 3 rounds of interviews with assessments and psychometric and other things. Are we very flexible to change our systems? That's a very open question in terms of how agile and how quickly we can mold our systems, because our systems are not designed. So for example, if I have 4 rounds of interview and if the customer is saying just do 1 round of interview because offer to join ratio is very low in the market, and I just want to make it sure that we quickly hire more people, release extra offers, and reduce the round of interviews. Some of the HR professions are even struggling to do change management in the system. So I think what is the opportunity for us is to see how do we respond back to the changing needs. Are we baking in the whole gig economy and part-time workers? Are the systems ready to kind of deal with full-time, part-time, sabbatical based people? So I think those are a few open-ended questions that I think we should start thinking now and start planning, because I'm sure while COVID will eventually go, but the way of working is hybrid and it will change. At least we made a very bold statement of saying that we will never have 100% of people come back. So are we designing our systems? Yes, we are. So that's the last thought that I'm going to leave with, saying that while we are closer to people by technology, by our processes, so we need to still kind of demonstrate the culture of empathy by having a human touch, but at the same time, ensure that are we getting our systems ready to change, to deal with changing requirements of business, which is very fast. And I think it is an opportunity because we all are known to kind of quickly work and turn around challenges into an opportunity to the part of the world we are sitting in. Again, thank you very much for inviting me over and kind of sharing some thoughts. Uh, but the world's moving into a better place. I think every day we are taking risk. Businesses taking risk. We are experimenting new, and I'm sure that we will all learn and improve with the way the workplace environment is changing. So great to have on this call, and I hope I'm on time. If I'm allowed to take any questions, I will be more than happy to chat with you over LinkedIn or through the forum questions. Thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot, Sumit sir. And I would request attendees to please put up your questions into the chat box. We will take one or two questions, or else you can just raise your hand and we will allow you to speak.
Hi, Sumit. This is Sampath. So what are the biggest challenges that you faced over the last 18 months? So as everyone faced a lot of challenges, okay, but what is the biggest challenge that you faced in the Fujitsu, and how you have overcome that kind of situation? Anything that can help?
Yeah, so I will not call it the challenge. I think evolution. Most of us, Sampath, for the first 6 months, were dealing with making sure that we are enabling our employees to work from home, make the assets go. So I call it the evolution of making assets available. So I think that's what we dealt with. Next 6 months, we were then focusing on wellness and productivity. And it's such a, at times, paradox sometimes to talk about. At the same time, we're talking about wellness, we are also talking about productivity, improving productivity. And I think last 6 months, and we've done on both these things pretty well. And in last 6 months, what we have realized is that are we closer to our customers in this whole episode of dealing with, assets, enabling people? We're not taking away from our customer. And Fujitsu has a great reputation of being very close to the customers. We believe in co-creation. So I think last 6 months, we've kind of been very close to our customers and understood their needs. And that's how we're changing our system. So I think I will not call it that there has been a challenge. There has been a learning phase through these last 18 months, where I think most of us matured our supply chain of making assets available to enabling people today, versus to kind of making it sure that productivity is being kind of focused upon in wellness. And I think from an HR point of view, we face both the music. We need to take care of employee wellness. At the same time, business expects us to be profitable. So I think we have a very balancing role to play and kind of be responsible to kind of make both the parties aware what is in the art of making. And I think last 6 months, at least as an organization, we quickly turned it around and have focused a lot more on a customer where we're hearing. And in this whole process, our HR processes are getting more streamlined. So as I gave you some of the examples, we were able to kind of cut down a lot of steps, which in the world are called, unnecessary steps. And we could kind of turn it around, which is a win-win for everybody. So that's how we've kind of converted our challenges to our opportunities.
Great. So we have many questions coming up, but we'll take one more for you. That is by Savita Bhor, which says, what changes do you foresee to support change globally?
So could you repeat? I'm still not clear with the question. So
okay, I'll repeat. She says, what changes do you foresee to support change globally?
Yeah, Savita, a great question. It's a very open-ended question, but I will first focus around on behavior. Are we ready for the change ourselves? Um, um, you know, um, from a system point of view, I'll probably answer your question in terms of three parts: people, process, and systems. So from a systems point of view, as I said, are we flexible? Are we kind of quickly changing around? So there are various payroll partners today. Are they flexible to change to the needs of the company? So I think the mindset of ready for a quick change in an agile, fail fast way is something that we should kind of drive towards systems or in terms of their flexibility. In processes, I think a lot of processes in the virtual world can be now cut down by sheer communication and discussion. So Fujitsu does a lot of design thinking workshops with various parties. We get all of them in the room, and then we kind of ideate and we kind of make it sure that are we kind of bringing it to the value system. So I think design thinking is something that we really exercise to kind of manage change or plan change. And then in terms of people, I think, as I said, empathy is very important. I gave an example at the start of the financial wellness. Are we thinking on those lines, or are we just thinking on giving a great onboarding experience, making sure a laptop and a zipper and a notebook reaches the desk of an employee and he clicks a photo and put it on LinkedIn? I mean, I have all due regards for that. It's a well-established process, but are we kind of focusing on other areas and other needs of employees and creating a great experience in the life cycle? So hopefully I have answered your question in a way that to bring the change, these are the three changes we are looking at: agility, uh, a bit of design thinking in our approach, and third is culture of empathy is what we need to focus upon to bring the change. Those are the changes we are looking at.
Great. Thanks a lot, Sumit sir. And we have many questions come up for you. So maybe I'll request you to please take these questions into the chat box directly, and we'll move ahead with the next question.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot once again. And with this, we'll move towards our next session. That would be by Mr. Vedanta Mayangar, who is the Global Payroll Solutioning Head at Ramco Systems. And he will be sharing his thoughts on the topic, leveraging payroll transformation to move up the value chain. With this, over to you, Vedantam, sir, to take it forward from here.
Hi, thanks a lot. Can you hear me, Rishita?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Can you enable me to share a screen, if you don't mind?
Yes, you can share your screen, sir.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. Let me know once it comes up. If, are you folks able to see this?
Yes, all good, sir. Good to start.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Good morning to everyone. And UBS team, thanks for offering this opportunity. I'm Vedanta Mayangar, Ved in short. It's a pretty long name. I will talk about transformation of payroll, but more from a technology perspective, right? How payroll transformation can be leveraged, but more from a technology perspective, because the audience today is, practitioners of transformation of payroll, right? So I'm not going to be carrying coal to Newcastle. So essentially, it's going to be an outside-in view of how a technology and a platform company looks at payroll transformation based on all the experiences that we have had in the past, especially in the last 18 to 20 months, as to how things have drastically changed. And I just want to thank Sumit. Thanks, Sumit. Fantastic points. I noted down a few points, Sumit, where you talked about the bots being empathetic themselves, right? In terms of enabling the connect between the payroll team and the employee itself. You talked about flexible systems, which can help. How does it handle a full or a part-time or a gig or a sabbatical kind of an employee? What kind of policies can be incorporated, be it in the process side or on the technology side? And you also touched upon a very nice word. I'm going to be, without paying royalty to you, I'm going to reuse that. What about the securing of money? You give an example of Philippines having a fortnightly payroll running, and people want to actually ensure that they're financially secure on that side. And that's what you called as financial wellness. So thank you very much for that. So I'm going to be touching upon some of these points. If you look at transformation, I'm sorry if my screen is blocking some of the headlines out there, right? If you look at the transformation from a payroll perspective, especially in a global scale, you will have a maturity curve that is absolutely zero to complete maturity to in progress maturity. So when I put the red out here, the size, it's a sample, and the size denotes the number of employees, for example, and bigger the size, the higher the headcounts, smaller the size. And full green would mean much higher mature processes, mature technology, mature employee experience, compared to evolving one, which is more in terms of a greenish yellow or yellowish green. And there is a red, which is absolutely not there. This is only a representation. But from a technology perspective, we can see that this is an evolving pattern across. You can change the balls around there and keep the circles moving. But the truth is that this is evolving and there is no perfect green out there. So I have pictured something out here. There is no perfect green here because everything is evolving. The COVID has, as Sumit rightly mentioned, COVID has pushed us to innovate about from a platform perspective, from a technology perspective, I could say. It has pushed us to make the employee feel related to somebody responding very quickly to questions, etc. I will touch upon that as to what we have done in the Ramco scenario of product. Now, when we talk transformation, we always take butterfly as the biggest example. So I thought I will touch upon that. And interestingly, right, from the larva to the monarch, it is actually the juvenile hormones that actually pushes the larva to actually become a butterfly, which means Sumit was very nicely mentioning when he was responding to Sampath, saying that I wouldn't call it a challenge, but I would call it the learning, right? So these juvenile hormones, which actually prevent the monarch from becoming a monarch, the butterfly actually uses all these and fights and comes out of it. So from a technology perspective, to enable payroll practitioners, I'm looking at what is it that we can do and what is it that Ramco is doing right now, right? And what more we can do to actually make life easier for both the employee who's the end consumer of the applications and the technology, and also the payroll analysts and the payroll administrators within the organization, how their life is made simple. So I'm going to touch upon some of these points. Yeah. So what is the key hot buttons, if you have to talk about in terms of the technology, which enables transformation today, right? So things have started moving very heavily onto the cloud, right? There are a lot of complexities. The payroll compliances are fantastic. It is constantly evolving, which is the reason why in my first slide, if you will see, there is no perfect green, right? Or I shouldn't be putting a perfect green because compliances keep changing. So how do you handle that? Sumit also touched upon harmonization. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on harmonization per se, right? How strategic and operational HRs need to be organized and standardized in such a fashion that they can talk to each other seamlessly, right? What is the role of a service provider if you are outsourcing your payroll, right? So some of these points I'm going to touch upon. So let me first talk about the first part on the right-hand side, which is about infrastructure and hosting model. From a platform and a technology perspective, what we have seen in the last so many years, by the way, a quick introduction to Ramco, it's a bit too late coming in, but for some of you who are new to Ramco, Ramco Systems is a technology company, one of the pioneers as far as building a ERP or a product in the Asia region. And Ramco Systems was launched by Bill Gates himself way back in 1998. So we have been in this business for quite some time, and we started doing our cloud solutions by 2007. ERP was one of the first things to be on the cloud. Now, one of the things that is moving the market, as far as moving the needle, if you have to call it that, of the payroll transformation is hosting solutions, right? So we see three types of hosting. One is a completely cloud hosted solution. The other is the on-premise solution, and a third is a hybrid. We have all types of customers there. What drives them to do this? If it is an on-premise customer, there are two reasons why they go in for this. Traditionally, they have had a very strong infra IT setup. And also there are certain compliances related things which prohibits them from hosting it on the cloud. In this case, we have seen some banks, some pharma companies who very clearly mentioned that saying, sorry, we cannot host it on the cloud. Even if I have to host it on the cloud, it has to be a private cloud with a lot of controls and checks and balances. This is one. Second is the SaaS model, where customers say, I don't have the IT, I don't have the capabilities and the competencies in terms of DR and BCP, and I'm not planning to invest in that. I want to actually use the cloud to actually move businesses. So that's the second one. And there is a third model where our own customers, we have seen, for some countries, they have hosted it on the cloud. For some countries, they have taken it back and using our own platform. So the bottom line out here is, does the platform actually provide this flexibility? And Sumit again talked about flexibility in terms of processes. I'm talking about flexibility in terms of platform and solutions. Does the platform provide this flexibility to host it on the cloud, a single core, It is not as if I have code which is one available for the on-premise solution, a different flavor or a variant of that same technology and platform available for the cloud. No, a single platform available for you to actually host it on-premise, on the cloud, and provide you services. The moment we talk about hosting, we are talking about a lot of security and privacy related things. GDPR kicks in. So which means essentially I can't host employees' data on a country other than where the GDPR countries designate that. What do you do with this personal information? How secure these personal informations are? How secure is the data when it is on transit, right? Is it being encrypted? Are you masking the information, etc.? So these are all the things that comes in as considerations when you develop a platform and try to host it, whether it is on-premise or a cloud or a hybrid model. This is point number one. Then comes to the product itself, right? Which is where we actually play a part. So the hosting might be that we work very closely with the biggies in terms of hosting, and be it an Azure cloud or an AWS cloud or an Oracle cloud and so on and so forth. The product has to be capable of doing it. Point number one. Now coming to the core product, which is the payroll product for itself. Number one thing, does it do compliance? So the first slide which I showed you about heat map of maturity, right? Does it provide solutions across all countries? Again, going back to a single code instead of multiple flavors of codes or a third-party code, a single code base. Does it provide compliances across? Does the platform and the company have the wherewithal to understand the compliances for a country? For example, if you talk about India, right? Can once the wage code kicks in India, right? Will the product itself adopt to and be flexible? Sumit was using the word flexibility of process. I'm talking about flexibility of a product. Can it actually be flexible enough to incorporate the wage code? Right? Do we have the capabilities to understand what the wage code? So Ramco has got a payroll bureau which actually manages the whole concept. Is filled with chartered accountants. They score the market for all the changes that are happening. So when the last time the change happened in terms of income tax, which is an old regime, new regime, where you, as an employee, you can actually opt for something, well, the product takes care of that. How do you actually roll this out, right? These compliances onto the product, right? So that the grandmother is not on the roof, right? So I don't know if you know this grandmother is on the roof kind of story. So there was this kid whose father was working in a city, and they used to talk 2 or 3 times a week. And the man who was working in the city, he had a pet dog. So one day when talking, the son told, "Dad, you know what? The dog actually went to the roof and jumped, and it broke its leg. It's hospitalized and stuff like that." So because it's a pet, the father said, "Young man, you know what? Next time," and the pet is very close to me, so don't give me shocking news like this. Then the kid asked, "How do I give it to you?" He said, "Break it into pieces. And first you tell me that the dog went onto the roof. And next you say, next week, when you call me, you say it jumped from the roof. And then you say it broke its leg." So next time when the kid called, "Well, everything is fine." "Yes, Dad, everything is fine. But you know what? The grandmother is on the roof," is what he said, right? So compliance cannot be coming in late. Essentially, compliance needs to be ahead. So we need to know, as a product company, the wage code, right? The wage code, how it is going to actually work. So we already have started engaging our existing customers and prospects, also conducting workshops to them, saying that what is going to be on the wage code, how Ramco's platform actually delivers this wage code, how simple it is going to be, or how complex, and what is your role, what is my role, and how we are going to help you do that. So that is where the platform comes. Third thing about the platform is, when we talk about employee, we always talk about the end consumer, who is the employee who is consuming the application, but we generally forget about the payroll administrators and payroll analysts who are actually day in and day out processing it. If you are processing yourself as a on-premise or your own solution, right? How do you make life easier for the payroll administrator? What kind of controls are you building in? If it is a multi-country payroll, are you able to not view or view another country? So you have a processor who has access only to Philippines and not to India, or has access only to Australia and not to India, right? Do you have those kind of complexities that can be configured by the employee themselves, the users themselves, and not depend on the platform provider or the technology provider, right? So those are some of the things that you provide. How do you roll out these changes proactively? What kind of documentations and hand-holding that you get from customers, right? So those are something that the product has to do. What kind of complexities that the platform can handle, right? high number of, I can give you one example of how Ramco manages an outsourced payroll for one of our Philippines customers, 60,000 employees. And Sumit mentioned about the frequency, which is essentially a fortnightly payroll with 500,000 input coming in for changes, 500,000 every fortnight. That's almost 1 million input coming in every fortnight for new bonus payments, overtime, leave policies, 13th month salary, and so on and so forth, right? So it's a very complex system. Does the system manage that effectively? Right? So that is something. Once you have done it for one country, and when you harmonize your HR and payroll processes with the compliances are taken care globally, what you call it, globally, right? Is it cheaper and faster to roll out, and the country onboarding, can it be faster for that same customer? So these are some of the considerations, some of the juvenile hormones that are kicking in, right? And finally, let's say talk about from a platform and a service perspective, can you have one neck to choke, right? Typical thing, right? Do you have a platform which is different, a service provider which is different, and there is a last mile service that is being provided by somebody else, right? Is there a way to actually have one neck to choke? So is there a product platform which actually provides all these services? And last mile may not be the platform company or a service company, but you have only one guy to talk to, and then they can do it, and whether they have the wherewithal to go and do it. So for example, if you take Japan, you have to be a registered company in Japan to do certain last mile statutory agency related services. Are you capable of doing that with the last mile? Do you have a presence in that country, and so on and so forth? So these are some of the boxes that you have to do. And finally, about the harmonization. So Sumit talked about HR as an harmonization, gave an opportunity, COVID gave an opportunity to standardize. Same thing happened with technology guys like us, where operational HR, when I say strategic, it is about recruitment, onboarding, performance appraisal, learning, succession planning, etc. And we in Ramco talk about operational HR, which is multi-country payroll, integrated time and attendance, and leave and loans and advances and compensations and stuff like that. Can these two talk together, right? One of the biggest challenges, technology guys, that the pain for the payroll transformation is this integration. So if you take Ramco, we have integrated with Workday, seamless integration. With Oracle, seamless integration. So employee can be in the Oracle platform. They can look at the payslip that gets generated in Ramco. Right? So these are some of the key boxes we have to tick. I don't know how I'm doing on time. Maybe I'll just wrap it up in a minute or so. The one thing that has taught us, while practitioners like you have been harmonizing the processes, we have been innovating a lot in the last year. So some of the innovations that I will talk about is we have launched something called a self-explaining payslip. Now, Sumit used about the anxiety, right? I mean, or the empathy or the emotions and sentiments. That's what Sumit mentioned. I'm talking about anxiety. How does my overtime get calculated, right? Why is my net pay less this time, or why is my tax more? So what we have done in Ramco is enable the employee to ask the question, and the bot, based on the AI ML, which is the in thing today, will answer those questions. The bot will answer the questions. Not only that, the salary gets credited automatically like a SMS that comes from ICICI Bank. You will get a note as an employee saying that, these are the changes that have happened. These are the changes that happen. You can ask the bot to actually apply for a leave, and it goes through the bot, and then the boss also applies. They can use the mail bot to just say okay to it, and then it gets done. So make life easier for all the people, because everybody is working from home. There are times when there is no power, so you use your cell phone. So what do? Can you do transactions on the cell phone? Yeah, absolutely, not a problem. Get on with it, right? So we have innovated a lot, right? I mean, make life easier for both the end user as a consumer, as an employee, and also so for example, the payroll administrators, they want to know how many people have filed their taxes. Has the processing been done by a payroll compliant payroll outsourcing guy? What is the status of it? Have you filed our PF statements to the government within the 7 days? Have you modified the things, and so on and so forth? What are the variances that are coming? Are there howlers out there which is saying there are huge deviations that are coming in, and so on and so forth? Can you knock it out, and so on and so forth? So I'm not talking about hygiene factors or platform which does all these things, but more in terms of innovation and stuff like that. And typically what we are seeing is that the innovation will allow you to do things on your mobile, because mobile is going to be there. The whole world is moving towards it. Do a lot of things, push everything rather than pull. Reduce the ticket raising itself, cut down on the ticketing process, and then push information proactively to customers. So that is innovation that Ramco has been working very, breakneck speed. We have been delivering stuff. Typical, target operating model for payroll transformation would be essentially on the left-hand side. It can be anything. Service provider can be an in-house payroll global shared services company also. So your customers, as you call it, will be employees, and then it can be the platform which you're using, and then you have a setup like this, and you have continuous improvement in terms of processes, in terms of technology, in terms of statutory compliances, and so on. And then finally, you have your own partners. It can be both. The service provider can be an outsider, which means somebody like Ramco Systems, which is also doing payroll processing with its own product. And then finally, the last one. So this is going to be the typical model. And here is where the intelligent bot will come in, answering questions to the employees and also the payroll administrator. We'll never let out the payroll administrators out of the view. And that's where we are right now. So typically, to summarize, I would say the employee is always at the center, be it payroll transformation or HR transformation. The hot buttons are not need to be known. How do you make that monarch come out of it? And what kind of services and products and processes? And technology is just an enabler at the periphery, but at the center is the employee. Right? With that, I think I'll bring my session to a close. If there are questions, I'll be very glad to answer. Thanks a lot. Thanks UBS and panelists and everybody who has joined. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks a lot, Ved. And I would request attendees to please feel free to put up your questions into the chat box, and we will be happy to pick it up. Okay, we have one question by Yelosa Shielding, which says, please share an example of high impact in global payroll standardization.
Okay. The high impact essentially has been in terms of the platform itself being the same, right? You had Excel sheets, you had homegrown applications, you had a different level of maturity of platforms available, either in a single country or in a single platform. Right? And users were, when I say users, I'm talking consumers, employees and payroll administrators, having to adjust, right, to a new platform. So there is a learning curve. The impact has been reduction in terms of your turnaround time, in terms of answering queries, turnaround time in terms of complying to the statutory requirements that have been significantly changing, and the impact has been in terms of employee delight, right? So the more you bring in those innovations, the impacts are going to be higher because employees don't need to continue their anxiety. For example, if you're closer to your payroll date and you have applied for a leave, and today is a COVID situation, somebody is not able to approve your leave, near the cutoff date, you have neither marked an attendance nor your payroll has been, approved, you might end up having a loss of pay out there, which needs to be reversed in the next month, fine. But as Sumit was mentioning, the financial wellness is very important at this time. So high impact has been a faster response. If you have to put it in one word, a platform which is responding very, very quickly to, enable employees' wellness, be it in emotions, sentiments, or in the financial wellness. That's one bottom line that I would push from a platform perspective. Any other questions, you can always push it onto LinkedIn or on the chat. We can pick it up and then we will be glad to answer that. I think the panelists are waiting. I don't want to take Aditya and the panelist team. Thanks a lot. Thanks for all the patience hearing.
Great. Thanks a lot, Ved. And we do have more questions. I would request you to please answer those in the chat box itself.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Great, great. Thanks a lot once again. And with this, we'll move towards our light panel discussion now. And I'll quickly introduce our panel speakers. Okay, I would like to introduce our panel speakers first. We have Mr. Kamaraju Mutalya, who is Head IMEA Payroll Management at Nokia. We have Mr. Suvru Ray Chaudhary, who is Director HR Asia Pacific Solution Delivery Center at CGI. We have Mr. Willis Langford, who is Human Resources Director at Avnet. We have Mr. Sampath Koparapu, who is Principal Associate Director Finance at DXC Technology. We have Mr. Divakar Arora, AVP Head Advantage Banking and Corporate Payroll, IPB at Dash Bank. Mr. Siddhartha Chandoke, who is Senior Director Head Compensation Benefits Payroll Statutory ESS and Wellness India and Global at MetLife. And this elite panel would be moderated by Mr. Aditya Ranjan, Head HR Avionics Asia and Latin America at Collins Aerospace. With this, over to you, Aditya, to take it forward from here.
Thank you, Ritika, and good afternoon to everybody. I was just sitting back and hearing the previous two sessions, and the one phrase which resonated, or which I thought I'd start the session with, is like the rising tide raises all the boats. So basically, in the past, automation, you could argue, was in a sense a priority which was not on every organization's list because of maybe the size, the scope, the affordability, and so on and so forth. But the last 2 years specifically has demonstrated, and the other speakers touched upon it in the previous sessions, that today more than ever, there is a need to have this local harmonized solution where we're able to support employees, especially with all of our organizations. At least if I look around the panel today, all of our organizations today are looking at not having business as usual being 100% bodies back to work. It is going to be hybrid. It is going to be people working remotely, working from different sites across the world. And so therefore, today more than ever, automation is the need of the hour. Just very quickly for the benefit of the audience, all of us, while Ritika gave a very quick intro of what we do, we as a panel also did a quick poll, and I can tell you that we've got a mix of experiences here in terms of payroll exposure. So we've got organizations which have completely automated payroll. We've got organizations which have got semi-automated payroll. We've got organizations which are outsourced versus insourced. So it's a really good mix of experiences around the table. And what we would like to do in the next half an hour or so is, cover with you some of our life experiences, some of our trials, tribulations of implementing some of these solutions, and of course, sharing some wins, sharing some great benefits of having gone the automation route or the outsourcing route. So with that, I just request us. So we've got a list of questions which were collected in prior to the session. So we'd probably go through that first, and then of course, audience is free to ask us questions at any point of time. But we will also make sure we've got time at the end to take questions or welcome any additional inputs or feedback. So Rishita, could we have the first question, and then we can get the discussion started. Are you there, Rishita?
Yeah,
just stepping in for Rishita. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Rishita.
Yeah, you want me to read out the question from the chat?
Yes. I think it'll be beneficial for the audience, and then we can respond to that.
Okay. Let me read out from Q&A. Okay, we have one question by Richa Agarwal, which says, can you please elaborate on some of the steps taken in the direction of for ensuring high level of financial well-being of employees?
I think Rishika, that was specifically to Sumit, because it was a point he had touched upon with respect to Fujitsu. I was talking about the questions we spoke about yesterday in terms of directional questions we'd like to start with.
8 questions.
Yeah, those 7 or 8 questions we discussed yesterday. So I think the first one was around just the challenges, if I recall from memory, of having gone through an implementation in our organization or in our experience, and sharing that.
The first question.
It is more into payroll automation in general.
So the first question, Aditya, am I audible?
Yes.
Yep. Yes, you're right.
All right. So the second question was on challenges. The first question was, if you have to rate your own payroll automation and journey, how would you rate it and why?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Aditya, let me answer this
Sure.
question.
Please go
Okay?
ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Great. Myself is Kamaraju, and just let me quickly introduce. So myself is Kamaraju, and I'm working presently in Nokia. I have almost 22 years experience in the finance and HR and payroll, all things. So I'm heading to entire India, Middle East, Africa regions, almost around 85 entities in. So coming to the point is, if you ask me, my rating will be for the payroll automation is I can say 1 to 10. It is approximately 8. I can give the rating of 8. 10 is the best and 1 is the lowest. So 8 is my rating. Because if you ask me, the journey is not an overnight journey. It is a transformation. It takes almost, if you see the last 15 to 20 years, there are the multiple levels, the multiple stages are going from the stage to stage. Like earlier, there is a manual process, payroll process, after the semi-automated process, next is the fully automated process. If you see in the initial days, the manual process is always like paper-based. Decentralization. The payroll is always processed at the branch level or factory level. There's no centralized payroll. Suppose if there is employees like 10,000 employees, there's no single payroll. And similarly, there is always delay. There's no real-time payroll. So these are the manual process. But whereas if you see, gradually the transformation come into the picture as a semi-automated hybrid model. In the hybrid model, we can see little manual, little systems. Both we can see that is early 2000s, that is hybrid systems. But whereas today's scenario, it is fully automated system. Fully automated means, of course, one point we need to understand, there's no end for the automation. It is an ongoing process for the automation. So integration, mainly it is an integration, fully integrated systems, where the two systems, client system, vendor system talks each other, like HR systems and payroll system talks each other. Automatically, the data will be uploaded into tables where there is no employee intervention, the payroll team is not intervention. It is real time everything. And also, the integrations and everything is not only between, there are multiple integrations we can see in the payroll software today. One is HR system integration, where HR system, maybe SAP, maybe Oracle, maybe HCM to payroll software. Similarly, financial reporting integration, like payroll software to financial reporting, automatically the journals, the accrual, liabilities, maybe the obligation liabilities, everything will be updated in the system. And similarly, client integration system. Maybe there are sometimes the billable, non-billable, what are the cost from the employee overtime benefit. This is also client integration. Similarly, time management system. There are time management system. This is one of the major integrations required for the payroll software, like sabbatical leave, maternity leave, sick leave, overtime, double wages. So all these systems, maybe in countries, I am talking the overall, not for India. So similarly, WPS, wage protection systems, these are the integrations most important. So automation is always required, and not only system wise, there is a process also required in the automation. Like earlier, we used to pay 100% salary in local currency at one time. But today's scenario, there is a lot of global mobility. International citizens are traveling across each and every corner of the world. So obviously, sometimes we may pay the multiple currency payments. Some like 60% in the local currency, maybe Indian rupees, 40% maybe host country currency, like in the dollars or euros or what it may be. Similarly, split payments. Maybe some portion of the payment you need to pay in the home country, like in India. The remaining salary you can pay to his family at host country, maybe Finland, maybe Budapest. What are the countries? Latin America, North America. So these are these systems also we need to think. So that's why in overall, my view is today's scenario automation. If some industries, the payroll is a daily base also, you can process the payroll, because daily wages system, today morning when the daily labor comes, by evening, the pay slip is ready. That means today automation is extremely advanced and you can get the pay slip on the same day within 1 day. So we can see data, daily payroll, weekly payroll, fortnightly payroll, monthly payroll. So a lot of things, these are the automation comes. So that's why today's scenario in Nokia, we introduced artificial intelligence in the AI, in the chatbots, robotics. We introduced 13 robotics for the across all regions of the payroll we are doing, and all the controls. What are the control point? Because we need to see the controls also, not only process, not only people, not only system. Same time, we need to see the automation in the control point of how much control, system control, technical control, process control, financial control, SOX control, audit controls. All these controls we need to ensure so that you will get a right salary, right amount, or accurate amount, right time. That is policy we are following. 3 are right time, right salary, right person. That is most important. So this is the concept we can easily implement. So that is the overall journey of my all my career of the family, because this is what I can say. Okay. Any
Thank
question?
you.
And
thank you, Kamran. Very interesting. And I took notes of a couple of points in terms of how you have seen the benefit and how it's made life better for your employee and your organization, and so on. So probably we can continue discussion, and we'll keep we'll park a little bit of time towards the end to handle questions, just because we've got a couple of topics to cover. So Suvro, can I request you to comment
Thank
on
you,
some
Adit.
of the challenges you've gone through as you've gone through transformation, experience payroll transformation at your end?
Sure, Aditya. Thank you very much. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Great. All right. Firstly, I hope and pray that all of you are keeping safe, and so are your families, colleagues, and dear ones. Ved and Sumit provided fantastic inputs on this subject coming from the field of expertise that they do. The HR world has, and you also mentioned, Aditya, that we always have been very pro automation for our own needs, for our own survival, and for the functional capability stuff that we always wanted to bring up all through. So the HR world has always been mad about automation and tech transformation since years, but nothing outran the need to have a robust HR record keeping system, which is the core data, the employee core data as we call it, and payroll. These are the two things. This fundamentally arose not just from a focus on employee centricity, that's obviously there, but as far as the employee core data and payroll was concerned, it was from the need to be compliant and therefore business sustainable. No shareholder, stakeholder would at the end of the day be interested in an organization which has 1,000 employees recorded and declared, and another 10% getting paid outside, leading to bottom line reconciliation issues. And you know what, I mean, it may sound very business as usual today, but just a few years back, this was a nightmare. And therefore a great target point for many of us in HR, not just from an automation standpoint, but a culture changing standpoint. And I will come to why it's a culture changing standpoint. We have some questions related to that in a while. But coming back to your question, the challenges we faced while being on this transformation journey primarily were, how do we get a platform that has the flexibility of accommodating off-cycle changes, exception management, and reconciliations? And this was a challenge a decade back, but if you look at it now, I don't know, I mean, many of you possibly would have gone through this experience yourself during the pandemic. Financial assistance to employees through payroll. We had to rework that and work that and get approvals and reconcile almost every single day. At least at CGI, right? Because we were continuously giving financial assistance to employees outside Medicare and so on and so forth, outside the insurance programs, loans and disbursements, and that certain thing that had to be payroll touched. And if you know the payroll people in any company, I was one of them, by the way, they typically consider it as a sacrosanct as a step in the temple. You're not supposed to step on it without having a bath, right? They don't want to touch payroll, and that's precisely what we did. And therefore the need that was a decade back in terms of how do we get a platform that is flexible in accommodating off-cycle changes, exception reconciliations, came back to fore all the more during the pandemic that we went through, and that still remains. It's a very relevant need. The second challenge was how to do the UI UX part of it, and accessibility, the mobile application thing that we had already talked about. A great support help desk, integrated accounting, recording files and pay slips, custom reports, ability to feed into multi-country tax management systems, direct deposits and accounts, and last but not the least, a very, very high level of security. Now, these were the typical challenges that we all faced while we were on the transformation journey. Keeping the employee experience at the center, which we are going to touch base in a while, was the second challenge. How do we bring about culture change, not just from an employee standpoint, but from an employer standpoint as well? I mean, there were not many years back, and there are possibly even now as we talk, quite a few not so professionally driven organizations where the promoter, for example, would not want that automation in the first place, as it makes things convenient for them to keep it off automation, right? So those are big cultural changes. When we brought in a payroll and we tried to reconcile numbers, etc., we came across that, right? I mean, there may be a little bit of a denial on that, and we say, what are you saying? Are you 20 years back? But trust me, there are organizations that existed that way. That's where it becomes culture changing. Thank you so much. So I will leave it to the rest of the questions, and I think there are quite a few interesting ones lined up. Thank you, Aditya.
Thank you, Suru. That was very interesting and very crisp in terms of some of the challenges you faced in your journey. I mean, Sampath, if I can call on you next to talk about, so we've heard a little bit about challenges. We've heard from Kamaraju and his life experiences. If you could talk us through, what's generally going well, and what in some of the challenges Suru mentioned, I mean, what has been your take to respond to those challenges, maybe turn it around into an area of opportunity? That would be great.
Sure, definitely. Am I audible, first of all? Okay, great. First of all, thanks to UBS Forums for inviting all of us into one common platform, especially in this virtual world where we are missing people in terms of connect and everything. So, and myself, Sampath, I'm currently working with DXC Technology, and I have 15 years of experience entirely into finance. Okay, so we're little bit different from what exactly in the current portfolio we see is like HR, payroll, and everything. But I'm into different corporate finance. Okay, so where I see the HR, especially when we say payroll, it is actually a shake hand between the HR and finance folks. Okay, so and I see them as a railway track. Okay, if we compare to our live example. Okay, and imagine our train is an organization, and the HR and finance are railway tracks. Even though they both don't connect to each other at any point of time, but they always need to shake hand each other. Okay, and what currently is going well, okay, with this payroll transformation, definitely I can see a lot of things are happening at one shot. One, people cost is very important, especially from finance. Okay, where HR will treat them as an investment, but always finance treat them as a cost to any company. But at the same time, we also need to see how much revenue exactly we are generating on the investments that we are doing. So, which is very important of any organization. Okay. So earlier, in terms of finance, if I talk about, okay, so where I mean history, when we talk about history, HR will have their own systems and finance will have their own systems. So, but the numbers will never match. It's like a balance sheet. Okay. So with this payroll transformation, where we can come into one common platform where everyone can sync to each other one number basically. So which will help not only for the organization for our benefit as well. Okay. At the same time, it is best in terms of headcount forecasting or budgeting or for any other profitability, especially on this thing. Okay, these are the areas. And if you also observe earlier, if we raise any question, okay, to HR, okay, they might definitely say, okay, this is a finance issue, maybe we need to come back to you. If we raise any question to finance, okay, then definitely they might say, okay, it's more related to HR, we might need to come back. But now with a common shared service center, so both can be handled at one point. It's a one solution kind of thing, at where we can get a one platform. Where and again, I try to compare with the live examples where everything you can get at Amazon or Flipkart. So it's a similar thing. Okay. So and the not only this thing, like there are a lot of advantages. Okay, with this thing. Okay, where the cultures. Okay, where HR will have a different culture mindset and everything, and finance will have a different mindset always. Okay. Now with the combination of this thing, the culture wise and thinking wise, both will go in a streamline. Okay, or in line next to each other. Okay, and especially okay, any company. Okay, for any company. Colleagues are first preference, and then the customers. Okay, even if I compare to our company DXC, so our company DXC is nothing but delivering excellence to our colleagues and customers. Okay, if as soon as if your colleagues are happy, automatically you can make your customers happy, which in turn give more revenue and more financial stability to our existing colleagues as well. So at the same time, payroll transformation, earlier we used to wait to generate, or like Kamaraj, you explained, like we used to wait for the till last day to generate the pay slips and everything. Now everything is in your one single app on your phone. So anything, every time, anytime, anything you can do on your phone. So that's how the benefits what we talk. And also, I would like to emphasize here on little bit, not challenge, not I could say challenges, but we need to keep an eye, especially on the every country has a different policy and regulations, so the local regulations and everything that we need to keep an eye. And with the increase of technology, okay, there might be a chance of payroll fraud as well, okay, where we have similar cases happen in the past as well, okay, misuse of payroll tools and everything. So payroll fraud is also happening, okay. So we need to keep an eye, and we need to have a proper backup systems for all these things, okay. So which should always help, okay, to make sure that even though if any fraud happens, so we can immediately recognize that thing, okay, or we can easily point out those things. And also, one of the important factor of this transformation is classification, okay, classification of accounts or classification of categories and everything. That is one of the important factor, okay, which I observe, okay. So which will be helpful for any transformation, okay. So that's all, okay. And I don't want to take much of everyone's time here, because we have a lot of other speakers as well, okay. So, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, and thank you for so much having your patience for listening to me. So yeah.
Sampath, thank you for your analogy of the train tracks. I really liked it. If I may just build a little bit on the handshake, I sometimes feel that finance HR is more like a bear hug, especially with regards to payroll, because it's really, you've got to be that close to work together. I just wanted to share a few thoughts based on what I've heard from the three of you around both the pros and the challenges as well. I think one of the key aspects, which if we look at strategic HR as a function, we're looking at how do we make the employee experience seamless? How do we, for example, enable our organization to be globally mobile? And one of the biggest challenges is some of us on the call will recognize is payroll systems across the world differ. Taxation norms differ to a point where you can't even believe how different each jurisdiction is, each geography is. So at least for me, bringing in a system like which will allow us to transfer talent and do it real time with all the right compliances, with all the right data and information. That's a decision tool which business leaders can use to groom and grow talent. So for me, that's really one of the most powerful benefits of having state-of-the-art, fully automated system. The other piece which last year, especially in COVID, I got to learn by being in the field, is that across the world there were various governments which came out with subsidies for employers, and there were wage subsidies, for example. There were subsidies to prevent layoffs, and one of the key components for making the determination was the ability for us to bring out salary data, wage data, real-time employee demographics. So countries like Japan, countries like Singapore, countries like Brazil. So there were dollars coming into your bank as an employer if you could show robust and accurate data. So that was a very powerful anecdote for me personally to show the value of having such integrated and one organization or a global system. The other piece which I think one of you mentioned and it resonated with me was this constant battle on headcount. So there's always this joke about finance headcount and HR headcount and who's actually correct. And some of us will remember, I don't want to name companies. So there was an organization which went under a couple of years back, and there was a huge confusion because the stated headcount number was far short of what the actual headcount was. So there were all kinds of stories which did the rounds in terms of was there, why was there such a huge disparity in headcount? So to your point, I think this single source of truth, becoming a single source of record is of great value, because as a business leader, if I'm taking a decision, I don't want my CHRO and my CFO to be fighting about how many heads do we actually have on board. So that's again, as a shared services collective, it kind of ups the game in terms of our ability to be thoughtful business partners. The only aspect I wanted to touch upon very briefly, and I will kind of get my friend Willis to expound a little bit more on it. Is, we keep talking today about being inclusive, and we keep talking about having 5 generations at work. I mean, that's not new. As far as we can remember, there have always been multiple generations at work. There's never been a period in history where you only have one generation at work at any point of time. So if you think about everyone from a Gen X to a digital native and beyond today, my only concern is, and it also goes back a little bit to Sumit's point earlier in the afternoon of saying, how do we bring in that empathy factor? So I think the need for where I sometimes struggle is that I do recognize I've got people in my organization who are not technology friendly, and probably will not ever get to be technology friendly because that's probably, for lack of a better word, that's their stage of life. So how do we, when we talk of automation, we talk of employee experience, sometimes in the pursuit of efficiencies, in the pursuit of creating this wonderful, shiny, bright automated system, do we run the risk of alienating parts of our population? So that's a challenge which always comes to my mind every time I think of any sort of automation, any sort of investment in technology, because from a change management, from a customer appetite perspective, you have to be there for every single person every single time, and that's what a good organization does. So that's just top of my mind in terms of the one aspect which always troubles me when I talk of technology and employee experience. What I'm going to request Willis to lead us through is on the same topic, to say, is technology the only way you can make transformation come true? And if that's the case, what kind of change management, what kind of tips and tricks and tools would you suggest or advocate for us to go through this journey? So over to you, Willis.
Thanks, Aditya. In fact, it's been absolutely great listening to all the views so far. It looks like some of those thoughts have already been preempted, and you've stole my thunder. But nonetheless, I'm trying to make it interesting as well. I think the point is that, is technology really needed, or to really propel HR and success of HR in a way? The broader topic, I think it's two-pronged, and I will just touch upon quickly. The one area that I would say will still remain with a real human touch will be the consulting part of HR, and then probably the operational part of it, where there's volumes and accuracy involved. Maybe there'll be a lot of artificial intelligence and all our new technologies coming in. Now, with that as the backdrop, I would like to say if I just turn the clock back 15 years ago, or maybe like Kamaraju said, in the early 2000s. People, the employees wanted to go to organizations that had what I would call the cafeteria approach, where they had flexible benefit plans, and they would come back and say, hey, I can really choose the salary heads, guys. Do you know that? Can you do it in your company? And then all of a sudden, organizations were not tech ready, couldn't cater to those large customizations to employees' needs, and that became a defining factor. So that's one area I would definitely say. You see how technology plays another role. Another recent, pre-pandemic, I would say, we had the geotagging to attendance, and that became a big. It was like more a fad prior to the pandemic, but now it's become a necessity that everyone, attendance is needed. But how do you do it? You may have the world-class biometric, access control, whatever at your office, but now it's remote. So the point is that you definitely need technology coming in somewhere. And then back to the point, what I heard earlier of Sumit saying, 4 interviews to 1, how do you really cope with those changes as well? So there's this technological advancements, which is absolutely needed. In payroll, I would say it will be more than likely that it will be propelling faster than the other areas of the consulting part, maybe performance management or other areas. But in payroll, that's going to be a direct impact, number one. And if I move on to the second part, whether there's going to be, how do we really cope with it from an organization standpoint, the behavioral standpoint, I would say, steal a little bit of Kamaraju. He talked about the 3 R's. I'll talk about about TAT. Everyone wants their TAT to be intact, the turnaround time. But here, I would think the employees want T for transparency in what they're getting, the money that they're taking home, and how it's really conducted. Because today we have fixed plans, we have incentive plans, we have commission plans. So how is all of that, surfacing from a technology standpoint? Is it reaching them the way they see it, the way they perceive it to be? Number one. The A would be the accuracy part, like all of us know. I mean, everyone wants to be in the 4th decimal, honestly speaking, when it comes to my money, right? And the third one is the timeliness. So, sometimes we may say that, receiving the salary on time is a great thing, or it's not a big, game changer. But in COVID times, honestly speaking, having a job and getting the check on time is going to be a game changer as well for organizations, like Sumit also mentioned in his keynote. So, the TAT is going to be a behavioral part. And I must, caution, like I think I've already heard it once or twice, the empathy factor, the high tech, high touch, that has to be hand in hand throughout the time. If you're just going to look at the technology standpoint, I think they're going to be, looking at human resources as a resource which has no emotions, which is not true. Right? Human resource is the only resource that has emotions attached to it, right? And it's not my mouse where I can bang it and then still probably never cry. So I think that high tech, high touch will need to be there, and we need to really, do that change management to approach that in a more sensitive manner. I think that will be one of the ways we can, weave in technology along with the progresses that we make in the future. So I hope that is the way forward, Aditya.
Thank you for those insights, Willis. I really like the idea of the 3 T's, and I think we've got somebody appreciating, you on the chat as well. So great. So I'm just, in the interest of time, I'm sorry, I'm just being a bit of an aggressive shepherd here. So my next question is to Siddharth. And Siddharth, logical is that one side we are all trying to outsource more and more stuff. So then it stands to reason that if you've outsourced everything, then what's the next big bang from HR, and what's the big value creation in your opinion?
I think first of all, thank you for inviting us for this discussion. It's been quite a learning to hear all the speakers about their journeys, and I think in our own organizations we have experienced our own journeys in our own different ways. But considering that I've been through organizations like GE, American Express, MetLife. Every organization has had an in-house manual. When we came into MetLife, and I'm glad to see Kamaraju here. He was our payroll partner when we were doing BOT with them. And from moving from a BOT partner to at that point in time one of the best-in-class payroll service providers, outsourcing to them, they turning into sluggish partners, and then you changing for better technology to another partner, and during that having debate, should we do this in-house, should we own the entire payroll, what are the kind of things we need to do from a technology standpoint to enable it. Now I think all boils down, as we discussed yesterday, to a large part of our risk appetite. A lot of us, Suro called about the scale, Sumit spoke about the scale. It's the budget of the organization. It's the financial alignment. Like we spoke about the train tracks, we spoke about the bear hugs, but it is hand in gloves as we like it. Okay. And I think for me, the biggest challenge has been to standardize, has been the heterogeneity of the talent mix. Now, when it comes to, linking with our enterprise, stateside stakeholders, that kind of always comes in the way. But creating that big bang, coming to that question that you have, I think, first of all, having a hybrid model, to my mind, is extremely important. You can't leave it to inhuman resources, like Willis said, human resources that has no emotions. But having said, payroll is not only about crediting money before time, on time, at the end of the month. It touches many parts of our lives, whether it's full and final settlement, whether it's your statutory audit, whether it's your SOX, whether it's your other compliances. So I think the big piece that we learned during this COVID time is that we could use this platform and outsourcing in a far more faster way to give experience and benefits payout to employees on the front of work from home benefits, COVID benefits, and so on and so forth. I don't know if we were doing this completely in-house, how quick we would be. Having you already comment, Aditya, that who's got more headcount, who's got more bandwidth, who can do those things. So those kind of challenges get augmented when you work in a hybrid model that, you own the accountability, but it gets outsourced. But the big pieces, I think the big bang will be now to see that how you can create, the biggest challenge organizations today face is that for every financial delivery, and people cost is the highest cost in the organization, as most of us have agreed already. How do we, unify most of these people cost platforms from an employee and organization perspective both? so that the exchange of information in data management, policy management, the controllership, the stakeholder management happens largely on one platform, okay, or maybe two if it is impossible. But today you will see that for your leave and attendance, it's a separate platform. For your payroll, it's a separate platform. For your expense management, it's a separate platform. How do we unify this and bring payroll, which is your biggest cost, which touches all of these parts in many aspects? It comes unified on that one platform. So that being the key value proposition, I think core of wages is going to change as and when it comes a lot of our working. So that's what I wanted to submit in the benefit of time very quickly.
Thank you, Siddharth. I think that's a very valuable perspective, especially around being human at the same time trying to be efficient, and how do we get that hybrid model across. So we've got about 3 minutes left of the scheduled time. I've got 2 questions, but what we could choose to do is I could leave it as an open question where we can chip in, and then parallelly, if we can have the audience ping us the questions, we can try and see how best we use the last 3 minutes, unless everyone's all right extending by another couple of minutes so we can have a richer quality of discussion. So with the question, I just thought we could end our scripted kind of dialogue with would be, if you had to think of we're all looking, we've talked about the word excellence quite a bit. We've talked about the word transformation quite a bit, but what's our vision for excellence in the context of using technology and transformation and some of these tools and processes? What does it mean for us? What does it mean for us as HR? I mean, Sampath, people like you from finance, end users, employees, etc. So thoughts, just an open panel discussion on that. And that could be a segue for the audience then jumping in and asking, picking our brains as well. So if you can request everyone to unmute, and then we can go around the table, that would be great.
Aditya, I'll just start. Okay. When
Sure.
you say excellence, okay, so there are 2 or 3 factors coming to my mind immediately. One, energy, okay, and time, okay. So everyone's energy is important. At the same time, everyone's time is also important. At the same time, how far we achieve our processes, okay, coming to streamline, okay. So these are 3 important factors which I consider. When we achieve all these things, okay, I don't say at a short time, at least one point of time, it will be definitely one of the key points of our excellence point of view, which as you refer, okay. So that's all I could say from at a very short description. So on this excellence.
Thank you,
Aditya. Just adding to some of the points, along with the energy and everything, there is 2 more points I can add to the excellence. So one is human touch, and second is commitment and transparency. Suppose payroll is a very, very long value of the organization, because if employee get this salary and everything on time and everything, there are a lot of people, they can stay back in your organization. That is good for organization. And so many cases I heard, they want to join back to such good organization where they will get the salary on time, real time, no expectation and everything. So that is the one concept is required. And second thing, transparency is also most important. Like Sid and Sampath mentioned, a lot of full and final settlements, we are having a lot of debates, disputes, and reprocessing everything. So maybe we can introduce, like, instead of nowadays the practice is once you start pay this full and final settlement, then you can share the full and final statement. But if you make it more transparent, like if you share the full and final settlement in advance, before salary, before amount credit, so that if there is any disputes, any gaps, so that you can reprocess without any effort, so that your transparency will be more, your employee satisfaction is very good, and there no reprocessing cost, no reprocessing, everything is better. So that's why I can suggest more transparency. What you are paying, forecasting of your entire whole 12 months salary in advance, forecasting of the full and final settlement 1 week in advance to the bank credit, instead of postmortem of the pay slip distribution after payment. So these are the some human touch points we can introduce, so that definitely these are very good excellence. very thin line between the excellence and great. But if you add these points, we'll get a lot of capability for organization as well as the payroll function.
Thank you. That's very useful perspective.
And also maybe the standardization or the data reporting and everything. And I also like the Siddharth point always, like everyone has a notion in their mind, even now also. Payroll is nothing but the salary crediting. So we need to think beyond that thing. It is not about salary credit or something like that. It is about a lot of people emotions. Okay, even though how much ever systems that were in the current world, but that still that bot cannot give that emotion as a human emotion. Yeah, maybe we're trying to build that, but I don't know how far it will succeed.
I think the bionic man is still a couple of years away. Other thoughts?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it just sorry, Sid. Yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead. We we like to keep.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, I just want to add on to whatever Sampath has said as well, and Kamaraju, in terms of, I mean, if technology advancement and this kind of automation is going to be just a check in the box, honestly speaking, it's going to be an outright failure. So I think that's where the holistic picture of emotions attached to it, and saying that it's not that what I'm earlier was okay, I was committed to a salary of X, am I get it on the pay date? But now I think there's a lot more emotion that goes into it as well. I mean, if you look at the generational cohort as well, right? I mean, we are in this instant gratification. I always use the IG because it's Instagram, but I call it instant gratification. When you're in this kind of a situation, and you got to be wary of the fact that we are addressing these emotional outbursts as well. And that can be done not just by timely and accurate, but I think it should be transparent as well. And that's where the emotional connect happens. So I just thought I'll add that as well. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Good.
I think, as usual, Willis has stolen our thunder. So I was about to say something very similar, that automation, good to have and must have, should be completely kept separate. Right. One noise in a focus group discussion should not formulate, let's do a project. I've got work now on my table. I guess we have to hit on, points which is important for the organization. That'll touch lives. Everyone's got that app now in the pocket. They can see their pay slips, they can see their tax working, they can do their reimbursements easily. But I think it's finally about how other pieces will unfold into your automation that are important, that are not just one tick or checkbox, like Willis said. So that's the same point I wanted to speak about.
Sid, you're very kind. Thank you.
So, bro, any thoughts from you on this?
Yeah, thanks, Aditya. Thank you very much. Very insightful discussions. I think I have only one word to say. Every long distance runner knows that if he or she has to run the long distance, developing the core is extremely important. It's biological, it's neurological, it's mental, it's sustainability. Every organization on the long run must have its core very, very properly defined and established. Payroll and HR core data, regardless of artificial intelligence and ML and whatever we are talking about, these two elements remain to be the core of an organization and has substantial scope of further evolution.
I think that's a very powerful analogy and a very good visual for us to keep in mind as we look at the future, as we race towards the future as well. I can see that we've still been able to retain a majority of the audience with us. So we've got, I mean, I know we are a little over time, but we are happy to take any questions very quickly, maybe 2 or 3 questions for the panel to respond on. So can I request you to type in on Q&A, or if you want to speak, if you can ask us directly, that's fine as well.
Thank you very much.
Your question is not audible. Not audible.
No, I just heard thank you, and then I saw the number drop from 55 to 54. So I think somebody dropped off.
Yeah, I guess the number is dropping.
Okay.
One by
Okay.
one,
So
5 minutes, maybe. Yeah.
I think in that case, it just falls to us to conclude the panel. Thank you so much for this has been very enjoyable. Even yesterday when we connected, it was just like talking to friends, and it was amazing to see the quality of conversation and the like-mindedness so quickly come about. So it's been great fun hosting this panel. Look forward to connecting with all of you socially, and all the participants. Please feel free to ping us, message us on LinkedIn. Have a wonderful rest of your day and stay safe and healthy.
Great.
Thanks
Thanks a
once
lot.
again.
Thank you so much for having
Thank you so
us.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, all the panel speakers and attendees.
Thank you.
Please feel free to reach out to us in case any questions. We'll be happy to connect you with the speakers directly. Thank you so much once again, all of you. Stay healthy and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.